All right, everyone, we start off today talking about the political vibe shift that has been resulting from Trump's second victory. This actually ties into something maybe a little bit less... I don't really like the term vibes. It's more like it's ethereal, it's a spiritual thing. While I believe in memetics and things like that, I think there's a much more pragmatic principle behind what we've been seeing politically over the last decade. Trump's victory, then Biden wins the election. Where'd those votes go? We're not allowed to ask that question. Then we're just conspiracy theorists. And now, of course, Trump being reelected by a huge margin, winning all of the competitive states. So congrats to the Trump family. Melania may have snubbed Jill Biden, but Trump's actually meeting with Joe. And, I guess there's going to be, if not a rapprochement, at the very least, a little bit of decorum there. That's a good symbol for the incoming administration, by the way, along with some of the new hires we'll be talking about in today's live stream, actually. Hegseth, I think his name is. Yeah, seems like a cool dude. Eminently qualified, although Elizabeth Warren doesn't think so. Yes, because she knows a lot about military affairs. That's why our foreign policy right now is doing so spectacularly well. Here's what I would say. And I mentioned it before, political paradigms come in multi-decade chunks, so to speak. The current political paradigm, or now, I suppose the past political paradigm, it's a little weird this time with the flip over. I'll try to explain. The last one was built by Ronald Reagan. What happened is that the older liberalizing policies of the Democratic Party were no longer something that people were receptive to. That was partially because of the oil shocks, the recession. Some of it, honestly, was out of Jimmy Carter's hands. And you gotta understand, when Ronald Reagan first entered the fray, Jimmy Carter was a heavy favorite to win. In the end, Reagan ended up becoming president of the United States by a pretty clear margin, and then went on to curb stomp everyone in the subsequent election for his second term. And he built that new paradigm. What happened is that if you maintained generally those same policies, but you cut taxes, froze government spending, the increase of it, for just a couple of years to allow private sector growth to keep up, what ended up happening is that was very popular. This is why Herbert Walker ended up actually being nominee and, actually winning. A person who was completely unqualified. The only reason that he got in there is because Reagan had been so popular. Then enter Clinton. Herbert Walker's not doing so well by this point politically. And Clinton had a bright idea, and I have no doubt that Hillary Clinton was the one that basically designed the premise. And Bill Clinton has always been he's the schmoozy face. He's the charismatic. Hillary Clinton's the one that stands in the shadows and waits with a knife to stab anyone that tries to backstab her husband. Give her credit for nothing else. She stands by her man. Sometimes stands over him while she's throwing booze bottles at his face, I'm sure. And what was designed was basically, let's take Reaganism, overlap a little extra welfare and id poll onto it, and we'll run with that. And it worked. Bush comes along, he basically gets in there just because the Democrats couldn't get their shit together with a candidate, but weren't they basically preaching the same thing? Bush is like, okay, a little bit more of the tax cuts, and also lots of war. And Gore's more lockbox. You might remember that Mad TV debate skit that they did, or was it SNL at the time? Pretty sure it was Mad TV. It was Gore v. Bush. And Bush gets over on the podium, and then there's like a lift that lifts him up so he looks like he's the same height. And then Gore just, he putters around and is penultimately boring. Same with Kerry. There was a reason why the 2004 election went the way it was. But all through this period of time, you had basically the same political paradigm. Neolib, neo-conservative. One side is offering you a little bit more welfare and at least proclaiming, originally, that they didn't like war as much. And there's a little more id poll. We get this with Obama, certainly, although even he, towards the end, said, hey, we need to tamp down on this bullshit. And then the Republicans, which were more, think of the troops, wave the flag, and we want more tax cuts. But it was basically the same. Like 2004 election, it was no choice 2004, Bush v. Kerry, who cares? With McCain v. Obama, I was rope-a-doped into that, but that was because I was young and stupid. But effectively, they were arguing for mostly the same thing. There was a 90% overlap. To the point where, I actually did this a couple times. At the time, I was astonished in my experimentation with the linguistics. I was like, what if I took these two speeches and I tried to compare them and what they're actually saying? You'd find that most of the time they were saying the same thing with different words. Obama injected more idpol, apparently decided that he tired of that after a while, and the rest was history. What Trump was a shock to the system, a rejection of some elements of that past paradigm. No longer will we have neocons that effectively are arguing for Clintonian politics, but a little more tax relief. And that's basically all you get. Democrats, and the Democrats may or may not make this paradigm shift a reality. Democrats that effectively are arguing Reaganite policies, minus some of the good aspects of them, with a little bit more idpol and increasing over time because of the youth going more and more far left, other than young males at this point, especially Latino ones, which is astonishing to everyone except myself. I think there is a vibe shift, so to speak, but it's really just a paradigm turnover. It's really just, you got to understand, every once in a while you need to retool the political system because the current reality that you're in isn't the same as it was 30 years before. This is not the mid-1980s anymore. Donald Trump represents effectively an attempt to reconcile, if I had to guess. He's trying to reconcile the primordial Reagan policies stripped back of the liberal bullshit and the Obama idpol, while restoring it in form and function to such a degree that it can actually inhabit the modern world and not fail. Because the kind of policies that you get in one era of time don't necessarily work in the future. It's like you look at any independent sector. Are there a lot of chimney sweeps these days? Are there a lot of people that cart coal around to people's homes to heat them? As technology and society and so forth change, they don't really progress, they just change for the most part. You have to retool that system, but you have to retain that original core of the system. If you're a civic nation like the United States, going all the way back to the Revolutionary period. And Trump is embracing that as well. The idea of taking a bunch of dissidents, political outsiders like Musk and Ramaswamy, putting them in and making literally an extra governmental agency to try to look into wasteful spending, it is something that had not hitherto really been injected into that modern paradigm. It's almost like we're still maintaining the same basic premise, but we're trying to improve it in various ways. And I think Donald Trump so far, and he hasn't taken office yet, is doing a fairly good job at that. Perfect? No. There are a couple of appointees he's made that I'm not terribly fond of. Overall, though, in the broader plethora of things, is it at least acceptable? Yes. Is it good? Arguably, yes. It rises to the level of good. This is what we got from Trump the first time around. I'd give his first term a 6 out of 10. Now, this doesn't make him a great president. It makes him a good president. But when you look at the dysfunction of prior administrations, Biden's 0 out of 10, Bush's Mercy 1, Obama's Mercy 2, or something like that, by comparison, it really shines. And I'm really, really happy to be alive right now to witness this paradigm turnover. Oh, you haven't even seen nothing yet. If you think that this election was weird, wait till the next one. That's about all. Peace out.